You ever have one of those games you played back as a kid, but nowadays it just seems like a fever dream? For me, that game was Shinobi. I remember playing it back in the day and really enjoying it, but I never finished it and really wasn't sure what I remember about the game. So I decided to pick it back up and see how I feel about it today. It had been a few years since we had seen a new Shinobi game in the works, but developers were excited to launch this brand new exciting Sega title on a brand new innovative Sega Dreamcast. Until that is, the Dreamcast failed completely and Sega, becoming more third party, decided to work with what some of the developers were more familiar with, the PS2. Ouch. While not the desired outcome, it's a much better outcome for a game to be brought to a different console rather than just being scrapped entirely. This was the case for Shinobi, but the console it was to be placed on wasn't the only thing that was new. Shinobi for PS2 was new in all sorts of ways. It would feature a telling of new characters of the Oboro clan. Our protagonist Hatsuma would be taking the status of head of the clan, after winning against his brother in what is a customary duel to the death. With his victory, Hatsuma would also come to wield the clan's sword, the Akujiki, a mysterious sword that will come to play a major part in Shinobi.
You are the leader of the Oboro now. You must be strong. Hurry. Take the sword. Take Akujiki!
Take the sword!
A few years after obtaining his status, a mysterious earthquake would decimate Tokyo, and with it, bringing the emergence of a golden palace. Tokyo would come under siege of a powerful sorcerer and his minions. Hatsuma intends to intervene when he finds that his deceased clan members have been resurrected and are being forced to fight against their will. With the Oboro clan waning in numbers, it's up to Hatsuma to hunt down the culprits responsible for his clan's suffering.
Yeah, I sure hope it does.
You don't become clan leader without having a few tricks up your sleeve. Hatsuma has trained himself in the art of quick, cutthroat combat.
Rest in peace.
This is reflected by his ability to speed dash, wall run, and take on multiple foes at once, which you'll be doing a lot. With Akujiki in hand, Hatsuma can quickly dash between enemies, taking them out in such a manner that it holds them in place until Hatsuma deems them defeated, which is a major feature of this game. If you can successfully defeat 4 enemies in a span of a few seconds, you'll be gifted with a cool cutscene of Hatsuma striking all sorts of cool poses while his foes fall to pieces before him. Score 5 kills in a row and it will show each individual kill before cutting to Hatsuma generally being a badass. While stylish, this also grants bonuses such as life and more kunai to throw, and serves as a major part of the game's core mechanics that we'll get into shortly. Defeating multiple enemies as fast as you can will be the best way to go for a lot of reasons. Not every foe fights the same, and have special ways to be taken down. Luckily, you've got techniques to help you face any challenge. Dashing leaves you invulnerable for just a split second, but it's all you need to dash through the wall traps and get behind enemies that might guard their front. Wall running is also a good way of reaching airborne enemies and wall crawlers. And if you're in a pinch, you always have your scroll technique to use if you find yourself overwhelmed. But use them wisely as they're limited, and retaining them at the end of a level increases your overall score. And much like the original games, your kunai will be your saving grace. Use them to stun almost any enemy and knock down airborne enemies from the sky. They're also limited, but not as much as the scrolls, but using them wisely is still advised. Levels mostly center around getting from the start to the finish, but with different obstacles like wall running areas, to finding these totems to break and progress further into the level, to simply just having to defeat any enemy you see. The level designs aren't too complicated and do little to really separate themselves, but you'll barely notice because you'll be caught up in the smooth as silk combat action. The only thing I could ask for is perhaps an attack into a dash cancel, but hey, we can't have everything. Beating both sections of a level will lead to a boss battle of some sort, sometimes being a lot of fun, and sometimes just being straight up redundant. Like your first boss is this dumb helicopter you have to kind of flail to defeat. Not a big deal until, it shows up later, but just on fire. It's not until we fight this mysterious figure that stays prevalent throughout the game that Hatsuma remembers the abilities of the Akujiki. The Akujiki is an extremely powerful weapon, but one reason it's so strong is because it feeds on life force. And if you're not feeding Akujiki life force by slaying enemies, then Akujiki will feed on the next best thing, the user. This is a mechanic that not only brings another level of challenge to the game, but also brings up a lot of change to each level, both good and bad. Akujiki is a give and take situation. On one hand, defeating enemies feeds Akujiki and causes your blade to become stronger the more you defeat, with your greater kill streaks keeping your weapon content and powerful, but also keeps the sword from performing its negative trait, killing you. If you're not besting foes fast enough, the little symbol here will deplete and cause Akujiki to feed on your own life force, which literally starts depleting your health. It's hard to really nail down how I feel about this mechanic because it's so one of a kind and really plays perfectly into the theme of the game. Killing as many as you can, as fast as you can. And what a mechanic. Like, you having fun? That's great. By the way, you're dying. And it's weird because I feel like I have to touch on all the game mechanics all over again. Where you were once doing cool attacks to gain more items in life, you're now literally having to do to keep your sword from ruining your playthrough. It's a great concept, don't get me wrong, but there are parts of this game that encourage exploration to get more scrolls and these little coin things that can be found throughout the level. But doing so causes you to not be engaged in combat, which in turn can lead to killing yourself if you're not quick enough to get these extra rewards. This is also worth mentioning because Shinobi doesn't do checkpoints. If you die at any place or any time during the game, you're back to the beginning of the level, which I guess is okay because it doesn't have a life system, but there are a lot of instant death situations you can get into, and it's frustrating to see yourself end up all the way back at the beginning. And this mechanic really does change everything. Bosses are harder because not only are you dealing with them, you're breaking away from them to fight lesser enemies to keep your sword full. And sometimes bosses can be set up to where you don't get enough life force fast enough, where you just want to try to get the boss done as fast as you can, which in lies another problem. I mentioned that bosses can range from fantastic to redundant. Well, this sword business plays a major part of that as well. For example, a bad situation is this giant tiger spider thing that has its weak spot up towards its abdomen. Hitting it normally does so damage, and it's kind of hard to hit it sometimes. The fight encourages you to hunt down these lesser spiders and hopefully kill them fast enough to where your sword is charged up to do some major damage if you can hit the abdomen. If you're skilled at it, great, but if not, this can get frustrating. Then there is this other occurrence where you fight this Fire Clan member, and it's a lot of fun. Balancing your energy isn't too hard, and you're mostly just looking around for where he is to stun him with kunai. Just a side note here that I really love that you can stun them with kunai, as I hate when some of your weapons just don't work on bosses. And you just wail on him until he disappears again. The multi-kill blade charge thing is cool though. I actually one-shotted a boss because I had killed so many lesser enemies before hitting him. It was kind of confusing, but pretty impressive that the game would just allow for something like this. In all honesty, I don't think I'd have as much to say about this game if not for that added feature. It's frustrating, but does encourage you to try to blast through each level, and with the gameplay being as smooth as it is, it goes pretty hand in hand. So good job, Shinobi, you somehow weaved a type of time limit mechanic I actually approve of. Looking past this, there are quite a few things to gush about with Shinobi. Like how the levels not only have a whole different scenario you can take on after beating the game, but the aesthetic merges current day Tokyo with an ancient Japanese feel. Sometimes you're sneaking through the city, and sometimes you're fighting through giant shrines. It's a pretty neat blend of time periods. The story isn't anything mind-blowing, but it is an interesting concept that you're fighting enemies that used to be allies. This is further represented in some of the boss battles where two of your clan members are literally begging you to kill them as they're unwillingly fighting you with all their might. It's a pretty sad concept, and it's further cemented by Hatsuma's reluctance to add their life force into Akujiki. Definitely serves to give a boss battle a little more emotional struggle. This also leads into the next topic, the voice acting.
Hatsuma, let us rest in peace. Please, kill us.
Shirogane, Akagane, not you too.
Certainly not the worst you'll ever hear, but some performances are definitely better than others. I like to think of this period of gaming as where voice acting was getting pretty good, but also had the potential to be really bad. And Shinobi is like the filling of a good-bad voice acting sandwich.
The yin of the hellspawn seems to have abated Akujiki's hunger.
I must save Master Kabuki.
What is a good blend is the music. Shinobi didn't have one solo artist, but rather a mixed composition from 6 major composers, including Shinobi composer veteran Tatsuyuki Maeda, Sonic 3D Blast composer Masaru Setsumaru, and even Panzer Dragoon composer Yutaka Minobe,
As if to mirror the game's blend of current and past Japan, the composition usually blends in traditional Japanese instruments and cultural sounds, mixed together with more current techno bass and deep electronic sound. It does not disappoint. And while not the longest game on the PS2 list, Shinobi boasts a lot of replayability with different levels of difficulty, and even the ability to use the old favorite, Joe Musashi. Completing Shinobi's roughly 8-hour playthrough only serves to unlock the full potential of replayability the game has to offer. And with Shinobi's fairly low price tag, there isn't much reason not to pick it up. Shinobi achieves everything it sets out to with just how well crafted the gameplay is. Smooth combat controls, an interesting albeit frustrating mechanic of keeping yourself alive, and an expertly crafted music experience coupled with decent variety of levels, Shinobi isn't something worth looking over. The game even did well enough to warrant a sequel by the name of Nightshade, which at this moment, I know nothing about, but plan to fix that. If it's anywhere near the level of Shinobi, it has to be worth it. I'm glad I brought myself to pick this game up again, as it's truly been one of my favorite games to rediscover. Who knows, maybe it'll be yours too. Thanks for watching.
Die.
Sorry, just had to watch it one more time. God, that's cool. Thanks for checking out my Shinobi review. I can't believe it took me this long to pick it back up, and I'm sure there may be a lot I didn't touch on. So let me know down in the comments, hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and consider subscribing if you want to see more. As always, keep it practical, and I'll see you next time.